welcome to Thursday Checkdown on a Tuesday. All right, we're doing this because I really don't want to interrupt anybody's holiday. And everybody knows Christmas Day is for football and gifts, but for football. So the antlers is actually an idea I got from Tipp. We'll talk to him a little bit later. But he said, let's wear something Christmassy. And I don't really have anything Christmassy. This is the closest I've got. So he's not even going to see him because I'm going to go back to my hat in a minute. But Merry Christmas to all of you from all of us. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great and excited to be on a show on the last week of the season, because that means championship series, and I am getting a chance to play in a couple. So hopefully what we're going to be doing tonight is helping those other people who, if they're watching tonight, they're probably in a finals or a championship game. Hopefully this will help them win and take their ships home with them.
Well, I hope so. We're going to introduce our Pros versus Joes segment now. And I've got to say, this week's pro is Derek Fevo, but you probably don't know him that way. Can you bring him up? Thank you. Derek, you know as Sleazebomb on the internet. And then we also have as our Joe, Mr. Rico.
I can't hear Greg.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me, Sleaze? All right.
That's always a benefit if you can't hear him. It's
I can hear you. I can't hear Greg. That's weird.
Oh, well, Rick, tell him to introduce himself and
hang on. Let me come back
in.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're waiting on Sleaze to come back in, Rico, introduce yourself and tell people where they can find your work.
What's going on, guys? My name's Rico, part of the sports affiliation team. You can find me on Twitter at Rico's Modern World. Certified Chargers fan, going through a lot this year with them, but it's a good time right now because we just clinched our playoff spot, so I'm feeling good. I didn't do too well in terms of fantasy football this year, but you can't win them all, obviously. But happy to be here with you guys. Happy for you guys to have me on, and can't wait to get into the Pros versus Joe segment and give you guys
That's coming up as soon as Derek introduces himself.
I still can't hear Greg. It's so weird.
Hey, Derek, let's just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're found, where people can find you.
So, what's up, guys? Greg, thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me, man, even though I can't hear you right now. Derek, a.k.a. go by Sleazebomb, across all social media. I do My Mind is a Weapon fantasy football podcast. We put out content galore. We run the Guys FF Discord. And we've got a couple new things coming next year that'll be pretty exciting here with a couple app ideas that we're looking at for 2026 here. So, and I'm glad to be here with you guys, man. Glad to do some Joes and Pros.
Awesome. And we appreciate you being here, and thanks for putting up with the technical difficulties. Why don't we go ahead and roll right into our...
Well, let's explain what the segment is first. In the segment, we're each going to pick a sleeper and a bust, and the sleeper must be somebody outside of the top 12 quarterbacks or tight ends and or outside of the top 24 running backs and wide receivers. The busts have to be somebody that's year-to-date in those lists, but you don't expect them to make that list next week. So if you could, Rick, please bring Sleazebomb in for our sleeper this week.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So why don't you, and Derek, why don't you go ahead and give us your sleeper for the week?
Oh, I couldn't. I didn't hear you, man. It sucks down here in the basement trying to get connection in Iowa. So my sleeper play of the week, I'm actually going to lean towards the QB side here because all of the injuries that happened at QB as well last week. So I think people will be looking for an ex-QB here. And it's going to be Mark, who they ran second past 4 weeks, second on the year versus the quarterback. They've been getting crushed. Even with their corner coming back and Diggs last week, it did not help them at all. They got crushed by Herbert, crushed by your boy J.J. McCarthy, Greg. And I expect the Cowboys to have a game where they're sitting there eliminated. and you're going to have the Commanders have a better game here because they're just down in morale in this game as well. And I expect 20 plus from Marcus Mariota this week.
So Marcus Mariota was clearly his sleeper quarterback despite the technical difficulties. Who do you have, Rico?
I'm also going to be going more of the QB side for the sleeper this week. I'm going to go with Jacoby Brissett. Looking at this Bengals defense, hasn't been the best all year. I understand they played a rookie quarterback in Quinn Ewers last week, but that's not really meaning too much. Jacoby has had a minimum of at least 200 yards in every game that he started this year. Like I said, he's got 19 touchdowns on the year and 7 picks. The Bengals are pretty much almost dead last in every defensive statistical category, which, I mean, kind of bodes well for Jacoby. And I think if he's not really passing the ball that much, he does have the ability to run because I think the Bengals are ranked 32nd in at least rushing defense. So I like Jacoby Brissett to have a really good game against the Bengals. Granted, both teams are eliminated from playoff contention, but I still think he's going to have a good game out there this week.
And people always play for their contracts next year, so he's going to be trying. How about you, Rick?
Hey, I'm going to go to a player on the other side of that same game, Mike Gesicki, the Cincinnati Bengals tight end. The Cardinals are the 6th worst defense against tight ends this year, and the Cardinals' defensive backfield is missing 4 key pieces this week. Jalen Thompson is safety, but also Max Melton, quarterback, Garrett Wilson, cornerback, and Darren Hall, cornerback. Meanwhile, Mike Gesicki has scored touchdowns in 2 of his last 3 games. I'm expecting this to be a shootout, and I think the folks in Vegas agree. They're putting the over-under at 53.5 points. Cincinnati is a 7-point favorite. I'd be loading up on the Bengals this week.
Okay, well, for me, I'm going running back. I'm going with the 34th ranked running back, and it's Bucky Irving. I think he's a very talented guy, but I know he got shot down last week. And I also know Sean Tucker is a goal line vulture, and I know all this stuff, but you have to love the usage and the matchup. Tucker, Irvin has averaged 18 touches per game since coming back from his injury. And in the 4 games since returning, he's only had 4 explosive plays. Okay, those are rushes of 15 yards or catches of 20 yards. The Dolphins have allowed the highest explosive run percentage in the league over a 5-week span surrounding week 16. So that indicates a high potential for Irving to at least break off 1 or 2 explosives in this game. I like Bucky this week. Now let's go to the bus. You're going to have to let Rico know. Sure.
So, hey, Derek, who would be your bust for the week?
So my bust for the week, I was between 2 of them. I'm going to go with Travis Kelce as an absolute bust this week, especially with Patrick Mahomes going down, then Gardner Minshew goes down right after. There's no way the 3rd-string quarterback and Travis Kelce have any connection, and I don't think he really cares at this point anymore. You can tell by his interviews that he's kind of, walking away from the game here. So he's definitely one that I am scared to start after what happened last week as well. This week, and people are going to feel like it's Travis Kelce's big name, and the matchup's good. I'm staying away from him this week as much as I can. The Broncos are going to get after him.
All right, Rico, who do you have?
For my bust, I am going to be going with the current MVP in Josh Allen against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. I know he did have somewhat of a foot injury last week, so that's something to keep an eye on for this week for you guys. But also looking at this Eagles defense, they are pretty stout for the most part. In 4 of the last 7 games, they've given up less than 20 points. Aside from that 3-game losing streak they had in the middle of that. And then they have arguably one of the best defenses in the league. And I know they have at least 37 sacks, I think is what it was, on the year. And they give it up at best 19 points on average per game. Josh Allen might be struggling a little bit. I know he wants to play Superman and kind of go through all these different plays in terms of like wanting to, scramble and make plays and stuff like that. I do think it is going to be tough for him to get out there and do what he needs to do. There's a possibility that Jalen Carter might be coming back this week. I'm not 100% certain, but if that is, that adds more pressure to Josh Allen. So I think he is going to be that bust this week, unfortunately. So I would just be careful with him.
All right, Rick.
Well, and
I like
apologies to my friend Rico, but Justin Herbert, Los Angeles Chargers quarterback. This is a rematch of last year's AFC playoff game won by the Texans 32-12. Herbert had a career high 4 interceptions, was sacked 4 times, and the Houston's Texans defense, if anything, has gotten even tougher. And they're now the number 1 toughest team against quarterbacks. Herbert goes from the easiest team last week, where he was 23 for 29, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it was against Dallas. And now he's going against the absolute toughest team, giving up only 197 yards and 1 touchdown per week. That's only 12.5 fantasy points per game. If anything, I'd expect this to be a slugfest between 2 great defensive teams. I think Vegas agrees with that. They've only given it a 39.5 point over and under. So Justin Herbert's my bust of the week.
I'm definitely taking that under if that's the case.
Yeah, I agree.
I got to tell you, Derek stole my guy. I was going to go with Kelsey too for all the same reasons. But since we just did Snap, Crackle, Pop, I've got 5 to choose from. So I'm switching gears midstream and going with wide receiver 18, Emeka Egbuka at Miami. All right. I asked folks last week if anyone is still starting Egbuka. And some folks are, because he is the 18th ranked wide receiver year to date. But, since week 6, he's only scored 1 touchdown. He got that ranking because he scored 5 touchdowns in 5 games at the beginning of the year. In week 10, he scored 1 touchdown and he finished as a wide receiver 3. Guess what? That's the only game he has scored in the top 24 since week 5. 1 time. He doesn't get into the top 24. It's just a guy. This is your championship game, guys. You can't trust Egbuka. And, I don't care who he's playing. You just can't trust him. This week he's traveling downstate to Miami. All right. Miami has given up some points to the top wide receivers in the league. They gave up 355-1, which is 14.5 points to DK Metcalf. They gave up 353-1 to T. Higgins, who's not even the number 1 on his team. They gave up 9 for 109. That's 19, almost 20 points to Jamar Chase, who is the number 1. Egbuka is not the number 1. He's not even the number 1 on his team. That would be Mike Evans. Mike Evans may have a game. Egbuka is not going to have one this week. Sit him. Get him out of your lineups if you haven't already. That's it for our Snap, Crackle, Pop. But I do want to thank Sleaze and Rico. Rico was a last-minute ad. I really appreciate that, Rico. I mean, he was like yesterday we asked him if he could come on because we changed the date on the show. Normally we have a couple days to figure this stuff out. We'll get both of you guys on again in the off season when we're doing other things than the game matchups and things. But I want to thank you both. They may stick around. If they do, we'll bring them back for the mailbag so they can answer mailbag questions. But if not, thank you guys both for coming on. Have a very, very wonderful Christmas. And may all of your teams, if you have any, in the championships, win.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas to y'all as well.
All right. And now we're to our news segment. Now, you may notice that
there you go. There's the news section.
Does this mean Iggy's back, or did you do that?
I figured it out. Go.
Oh, okay. All right. So when Iggy's missing, Iggy's normally our producer. It all falls on Rick, and it's hard to do production and show at the same time. So I do want to thank Rick for stepping up and doing that. So we're going to do news and notes. Do you know? Have you seen if Tipp has made it into the green room yet?
Tipp was in the room, but it looks like he's got his camera off. I don't know if
he's going to have his camera off. We know that. He's
Okay.
going to do audio only.
So if you want to do his bit now so that we can, get him on his way, then I'm cool with holding off on the news.
All right, we could do that. That his segment is I'm waiting. I got to switch headgear for Tipp. We can't see him, but he might be able to see us. Can you promote him? Tipp, are you there, buddy? Earth to Tipp.
Hey, Tipp.
All right, let's do the news.
Okay, well, let's go right into the news then. And we did talk a little bit about some of the bigger injuries, especially focused on quarterbacks. Seemed like a lot of quarterbacks went through injuries. I'll go through just the quick update. Brady Cook is going to be starting this week for the Jets, and part of the reason for that is that Justin Fields is actually now been announced to the injured reserve, so he's out for the rest of the season. Brady Cook's going to get the chance to take this team through the rest of the season. He's been pretty bad, so I'm sure teams or players that are watching this aren't going to be starting him in their playoffs. Oh, wait a minute. I am starting him in one finals. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. DK Metcalf, also the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, was suspended for the rest of the season for an altercation with a fan in the stands.
Did you see that? Well, we got a couple minutes. Did you see that?
I saw that, but I also know that there's a backstory to it, and that
I do too. And I think that fan should be banned from all NFL games ever again. He should never get in again. But Metcalf's got to have better control. He just does.
And it's a shame because again, he had been having a really
great
strong
year,
season.
yeah.
And as one of my quarterbacks in another final is Aaron Rodgers, I'll certainly be missing his number one receiver. Although, tell us who is going to be replacing him.
According to his coach, Mike Tomlin says you can expect an expanded role from former Michigan superstar wide receiver, Mr. Roman Wilson. Now, before you jump out your seat, understand something. If you're in a final and you had injuries to your top guys, or you had DK and you need to replace him, Roman Wilson has actually had pretty good numbers when he's played. He just hasn't played much. I think he's had 26 targets all year, but I think of those 26, he's caught 16 or 21. I don't remember. 16 targets, 12 catches, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the percentages are good. He just hasn't been on the field enough. So if he gets on the field and gets a full-time position on this offense, Aaron Rodgers is lighting it up right now. He's getting the ball to his receivers. I could see a 6 or 7 catch day for 100 yards and a touchdown for Roman Wilson. And I can't imagine anybody that wouldn't like that kind of day in their lineup from a guy you've got in week 17 off the waiver wire.
So I'm just going to buzz right through a lot of the other injuries just to make sure we're able to cover them all. Josh Allen, he had a foot injury. They did x-rays in halftime, apparently. Did not miss any playing time. He is expected to play, but again, watch injury reports. Jordan Love suffered a concussion against the Bears. His backup, Malik Willis, he also had an injury, shoulder injury. If neither Love or Willis are able to play, the Packers can elevate Clayton Tune. But my feeling is, because it's an important game, Malik Willis will get the start. Lamar Jackson, he also was injured, left the game with a back injury,
He took a
concussion,
knee to the back. It looked pretty bad.
and he
It's
did look
just a bruise,
like
though.
hurt. So he was replaced by Tyler Huntley, who was 9 for 10, 65 yards. Huntley has done a good job in those games where he has filled in for Lamar Jackson, but of course, that's a big blow to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, but we did get to see more of Derrick Henry because of that. I mean, Derrick Henry did get more. Remember, last time he went over 100 yards, he only had like 10 carries. So we did get to see Derrick Henry used properly.
Correct. J.J. McCarthy, Minnesota Vikings quarterback, injured his right hand. Turns out x-rays show the hairline fracture. Looks like he's out at least this week, especially since it's a short turnaround game. So his rookie and fan favorite Max Brosmer will be replacing him. He was 7 for 9 for 52 yards. McCarthy
do not rush out and get him.
Yeah,
I know they're facing Detroit. I know Detroit's defensive backfield is destroyed by injury. But if you recall what Brosner looked like in Seattle, expect Detroit to do a lot of fancy blitzing against Brosner.
Yeah, in fact, I am starting Detroit Lions as my DST this week. And then also Gardner Minshew, the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, he had replaced Patrick Mahomes, and then the very next week, Minshew gets a knee injury, something called a non-displaced tibial plateau fracture. So he's the second Kansas City quarterback to go down with the knee injury in 2 weeks. The replacement starter is now Chris Oladokun, and I got that. And he was 11 for 16 for 111 yards. Again, if you are in the finals, you're not going to be starting, a third-string quarterback who hasn't played. Marcus Mariota, the Washington Commander quarterback, suffered a right hand injury, and his status for the game Thursday night against the Cowboys is uncertain. His backup, since he was already a backup for Jaden Daniels, now the quarterback is either Josh Johnson, or there had been some talk about the possibility of rookie Sam Hartman, or even recently signed Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. Of those, Josh Johnson has played a number of years, and so he would be the likely replacement. Quinshon Judkins, the Cleveland Brown running back, suffered a dislocated ankle and fractured fibula. He will be undergoing surgery, so obviously he's out for the rest of the season. His fellow rookie running back Dylan Sampson was also out, so the backups are Travion Williams and Raheem Sanders. And
I did hear that Sampson is expected to be back this week, but he hasn't practiced in forever, so we don't know if he'll be used at all.
Aaron Jones, Minnesota Vikings running back, had an ankle injury, but he did or was able to return to the game. His backup, Jordan Mason, also had an injury, ankle injury. So Xavier Scott became the Vikings lead running back and can get work behind Jones if Mason isn't able to play. Kamani Vidal, the Los Angeles Chargers running back, suffered a neck strain in the game against Dallas. He is considered day-to-day. Former Michigan running back Hassan Haskins is be the backup to O'Brien Hampton if Vidal is unable to play. Demario Douglas, the New England Patriot wide receiver, left the game against the with a back injury, and I'm sorry, no, with a hamstring injury. And Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins, Kayshon Boutte, who I think is also out, and Kyle Williams make up a pretty solid wide receiver group, even without Douglas. Pat Bryant, Denver wide receiver, he had a concussion, was carted off the field, and actually was hospitalized, but he was discharged. The Broncos, Cortland Sutton, obviously, so wide receiver 1, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, and Little Jordan Humphrey would see more work if Pat Bryant is unable to play this week, and it's unlikely he will. Jordan Addison, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, left the game, but I wasn't able to find out exactly why. So he's had a poor season.
Embarrassment. He dropped that touchdown pass from my boy JJ.
And so Jalen Naylor would see more targets in Addison's absence.
Well, wait a minute. You say Jalen Naylor. I understand the logic there, but let's remember who the quarterback is. We have no idea who Brosner's going to throw to.
Yeah, and if anything, the best friend of a rookie quarterback is typically the tight end on the short crossing pattern. So if anything, I guess it would be, TJ Hawkinson would be the primary receiver. And I guess there is no update on Justin Jefferson. Weren't you the one who was going to, possibly add him, or maybe that was Dennis that was going to have him as one of his sleeper starts? And then
I thought his picture was on a milk carton I saw the other day.
A couple of IDP injuries. I mentioned Garrett Williams is out. Denzel Perryman, the Los Angeles Chargers linebacker, was suspended. Minka Fitzpatrick, the Miami Dolphins safety, is out with a calf injury. Also, some important offensive line injuries. Arante Ursary, the Houston Texans offensive tackle, out with a broken hand. And Trent Brown, the Houston Texans offensive tackle, is had a knee injury. That's both the offensive tackles. So against a tough defense like the Chargers, it gives the Chargers a little bit more of a chance. And that's it for all the news.
All right. We've already played the intro into the next segment. I just got notified by Tipp that he is ready. So if you could bring him in. Is that Mr. Tipp Major there?
Yo, what is up, fellas?
I got to ask, can you see us?
I can see and hear you guys now. Yeah, I think when I overheard you guys trying to get me on, but I was on the other line. So but I am stationary, I'm safe, I'm good to go. I'm ready to talk some AI.
Perfect, because I wanted to show you the headgear that was inspired by you earlier today.
I see it. Yeah, we did have a little conversation about like if you had a hat or anything like that. And I mean, I don't see anything different, Rick. I mean, it looks exactly the same. He looks like
I
a
do have
buffoon to
big
me.
ears. I got to admit, I do have big ears. All right. So, Tipp, tell us about the segment, please.
Yes, yes. So, guys, all season long we've been tracking it, and we're not going to stop at week 17. We're going to continue on to week 18. But we've been tracking the AI versus myself, and Greg and Rick have also been involved in this, where we are tracking to see which players we are recommending, and if we're recommending the right players. And fellas, I gotta say, right now, I'm leading the pack
He
again.
is.
Let's see if I can hold that lead though, because I've had the lead before and then I've let it go. Sir Whittington and I have been neck and neck most all season, along with you guys. But I pulled ahead. I'm 36 points. Sir Whittington is at 38. Greg and Rick both are at 40, or excuse me, at 40 apiece. But look, man, Krog, he's out of
Oh,
the
no,
race.
no. You're mistaken. I'm at 40.
Oh, I'm
Rick is
sorry.
at
Rick, yeah,
38.
Rick is 40. Yeah, Rick is 40 or 38. You're 40.
Yeah,
So
I'm at 40. Yeah.
Rick and Sir Whittington are tied as well. So it's really close amongst all of us. Any one of us can still take it at this point, guys. That's why we're gonna go to week 18. But let's talk about some of the players that we have for this week. All right, we got 3 players that are I would say players that you could be on the waiver wires. You could get them on your squad. You could look at these players this week as potential league winners. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. And the players that we're looking at are running back Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons. We're looking at Colston Loveland, tight end of the Chicago Bears, And last but not least is an interesting one. It's Mac Holland, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. And I'm going to talk to you guys on why it's an interesting one in a moment. But we're going to talk, first of all, about Sir Whittington. And Sir Whittington has it locked in like this. He has Colson Loveland at number one. And he says it's steady PPR floor, consistent targets, and likely usage bump because of some injuries to the teammates. He also says his matchup is tough, but he likes his athleticism in the red zone. It's really not that tough of a matchup going against San Francisco. San Francisco does let up some points to the tight end, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. He has Tyler Algier, number two, in his rankings. Sir Whittington says,
And we lost him.
strong. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're
I
good.
hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you said Tyler Algier and then cut out.
Oh, you know what? You know what? Your boy had to take a pause. That was a little comment in my speech there because I had a little dry throat happen thing, and I had to like get that out. So I apologize if there was a sound or anything like that. But yeah, we're good to go. Tyler Algier, strong touchdown candidate, favorable in the goal line, goal to go situations. I agree with all that. The running back situation against the Rams is hard. It's tough. This Rams defense is tough against the run. They've been for most of the season, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then it has a little bit of concern about the Bijan Robinson timeshare situation, or Bijan Robinson being the main focal point in that offense. So he has a little concern on there. Max Hollins, he does see the increase in targets the last couple of weeks, but that's just something that's just been happening. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a game flow situation against the New York Jets, who are not only one of the worst teams in the league, but possibly and in that division. It's just one of those teams that they're not going to need Mac Hollins. So that's why he feels like Mac Hollins is going to be left out in the. And I agree with him on that one. I think you're going to see that in all of the different bullet points that we have for Mac Hollins. But we're going to start with Krog next. Krog has it. Colston Loveland. Again, I think Colston Loveland is going to be pretty popular amongst our picks this week. But he has Colston Loveland, PPR friendly volume, and great potential with these injuries. We talked about that. He also says that he also offers some targets, and when he says targets, he has a reception based ceiling with this group because look, you also have Cole Kmet you have to worry about, but Cole Kmet is not the one getting pass catches and getting a lot of those targets. I think Cole Kmet actually is. Cole Kmet's getting in the mix, but more in for the blocking. He is a reliable blocker. He is getting. They're sharing about the same targets, but snap percentages. But you got to look at what Colston Loveland can do with his athleticism. And then he rounds it off with Matt Collins. They said, look, the efficiency is not going to be there for him because, yes, he has had those targets, but what you're going to be missing is you're going to be missing those opportunities in this game where they're not going to need him. And that's exactly what Krog said as well. And I agree with what Krog says, even though he's been terrible on the season. And for myself, I again have it Colston Loveland. If Adunze misses this week, Colston Loveland is going against the San Francisco 49ers. They said that it was a tougher matchup. I believe that it's actually an easy matchup for them. The San Francisco 49ers have given up 9 touchdowns to the tight ends on the season. It's not the most. It's not Cincinnati, but it's definitely in mix for somebody like Colston Loveland should he have targets being thrown his way because of some injuries. So I do like that pick for Colston Loveland. Tyler Algier, tough matchup against the Rams, guys. And I will say this: their Rams are going to have their handful with Bijan Robinson, and I think they try to get back to basics with running the ball, keeping the Rams offense off the field. But there's only so much you can do against this Rams offense. It's such a potent offense. I think that they're going to be from behind, and that's going to make Bijan Robinson the player to have it out of the backfield because being from behind it's one of those situations where they're going to be throwing the ball to Bijan Robinson. They don't throw the ball much to Tyler Algier. They have in the past, but not much since they have Bijan Robinson. So they're not going to need to utilize Tyler Algier as much this week. And then look, Matt Collins, look, guys, 2 touchdowns on the season. He's a fourth, maybe the fifth option in this offense. It's a very well balanced offense. And what I mean by that is they run and they pass just about the same clip. They're very well balanced. And when you have a well balanced team, you don't want to have a fourth or fifth passing option as your option going into week 17 in the championship week. You want to look for players who are going to give you a little bit more opportunity, a little bit more target share in that offense. Even though Matt Collins has had some targets these last couple of weeks, it's something you can't trust again against this matchup. They might be up so much in this game, they might be sitting second and third stringers or playing second and third stringers by the fourth quarter.
Meaning
All
Kyle
right.
Williams.
Your turn, Rick.
Kyle Williams.
Yes. Okay. And this isn't the order that my preference will be. I'm just reading off the order that was originally listed. So Tyler Algier, who's I give the nickname Thorn because he's been such a thorn in this side of Bijan Robinson owners all season. In fact, last year too. But the Rams are number 5 against the run. They give up less than 82 yards and 13.7 fantasy points per game. What they are a little easier is as a receivers, running backs in the receiving game. So that's really where Bijan is going to come to play. Algier owners only hope he's able to snipe yet another touchdown at the goal line from Bijan. Matt Collins has been a pleasant surprise for the New England Patriots with 46 receptions for 550 yards. But as Tipp said, only 2 touchdowns. The Jets are not as good at defense and only mid-pack defending against wide receivers. But the challenge that the Hollins is going to have is that Drake May tends to spread the wide receiver love around. Last week it was Diggs with 10 targets, 9 catches, and 138 yards. Hollins did actually go 9 for targets, 7 catches for 69. But the week before, Hollins was the favorite, but only with 8 targets, 4 catches, 41 yards. The week before the bye, it was Hunter Henry, who had 6 targets, 4 catches for 73. And with Demario Douglas out, I think he'll get some usage and scoring, but since he's not really a touchdown threat, it's going to be at best in the low teens. And then last, Colston Loveland has a similar challenge, lots of target competition, including from Cole Kmet. But going against the Packers last week, Loveland had 4 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards. Even in a game without Rome Odunze and Luther Burton, DJ Moore was, as expected, the number 1 target, and then Olamide Zacchaeus was number 2, and Loveland was tied with backup running back Kyle Monaghan in targets. But this week they take on the 49ers, and so he has a little bit easier defense to go against for tight ends than the Packers. The 49ers were tough against fellow rookie tight end Tyler Warren, who was only 3 for 30, and Gigantor Mo Alley Cox, who was 2 for 16. So with all that said, I would put the order still Colston Loveland, and then Matt Collins, and last Tyler Algier. And quite honestly, the last 2, I'm not really confident at all if that's the right order, but that's the order I'm going.
All right.
Can I say something after you're done about Tyler Algier too, Greg?
Yes, you may. You want to say it now?
No. You go ahead and give yours.
All right. This is the week where I pass you all. Sorry. While many will see Algier as the most likely pick to find the end zone, all right, none of these players has a better than 30% shot at scoring a touchdown. All right. That minimizes this is a predictability factor. Hollins has the lowest factor, 0.20. All right. Above him is Loveland, 0.22. And above him is Algier at 0.29. It's just not a big enough difference to use that as your determining factor. Hollins dominates in the projected receptions. All right. He's projected for 409, whereas I think Algier is projected at 0.9. And if I recall correctly, Colson Loveland is projected about 3.5. So that's primarily not because Hollins is a great receiver, but because his recent usage, as these guys said. He's had 17 targets the last 2 games, 8 and 9 in the last 2 games. And his Week 17 opponent, the New York Jets, he also projects for more yards than the other 2 guys. Now, I don't think any of these guys is going to win you your league, all right? But as a deep flex play, if any of them gets in the end zone, they're likely to win this. But I went with wide receiver first. Then I went with the Colson Loveland, the tight end, and finally with Algier. Because if Algier doesn't get in the end zone, he's 4 points. And that's just lower than the guys that will catch the ball, in my opinion.
I know Tipp wanted to say something about Algier, but the one point I made about Colson Loveland, he, of all these 3 players, is the one player that the team would be designing plays around, trying to get him involved in the offense a little bit more, so that he might be a running play, he might be throwing something out in the flat, but I do think that of all the 3 players, he has the highest upside to make a big play, especially compared to Hollins and Algier. So take it away, Tipp.
You know, guys, while I was doing some research on Tyler Algier, because he's been fascinating, because there was one point in the season where we could look at him as a flex option, as a possible, if you had bye weeks or injury situations, maybe even more than that. And because of the touchdown upside that he was getting, and because they were running the ball so much and utilizing the running, they were keeping themselves in games and winning some of those games. I think they did themselves a misjustice from going away from the run so much. But I will say this. I found another weakness or kryptonite for Tyler Algier. And it's odd number weeks. All right. Since week 10, look at this. Week 10, he had 11 carries. He never has a bunch of carries. Like, he's never going to be a 20 carry guy. There's not a lot of those guys in the league. But week 10, he had 11 carries. Week 11, he had 3 carries. Week 12, he had 12 carries. Week 13, another odd week, 8 carries. Week 14, 11 carries. Week 15, 2 carries. Last week, he had the most that he's had in this span at 16 carries. Although the last 3 weeks he has not gotten in the end zone, he had 16 carries. I'm just concerned if this trend continues, which has been continuing, that I would be nervous if you're relying on him for championship week. Because, again, like I said earlier, Bijan Robinson is going to be asked to catch the ball and keep up with this offense, or as much as possible, because points are going to be scored when the Rams are playing. So they're going to be utilizing Bijan in that passing game a little bit more this week. So I'll be really careful about Algier.
I agree with that, but you still listed him as number 2 ahead of Hollins, and Hollins going to get 4 or 5 carries.
That should tell you what I feel about Hollins.
It does. It does.
Fourth or fifth option on a team that Rick just talked about how they balance it out against the wide receivers. I just don't want to. I don't want to take that risk. And
yeah, but 4 catches for 40 yards is still better than 1 run for 3.
Yeah, you're right about that. But that tells you, really, I think it's Colson Loveland, and then the other 2 are just going to be, bobbing for basics or for nothing.
Well, that may be true. All right, so that's it for our AI this week. We'll be back next week for those of you who actually have a championship in week 18, or those of you that are just interested. In the meantime, our next segment is our mailbag segment. And did the other guys stick around, Rick, or?
Sorry to cut you, but no, they're not. They, of course, wanted to spend time with their families.
I'm sure they did. And Tips, I know he's got a party for his daughter tonight, so he won't be staying. Is there anything in the chat at all?
Yeah, there was one question I saw from Sniper Mel who was asking, actually, it's kind of a three-part question, Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence?
I think that's a tough one, to be honest.
Trevor Lawrence has been playing great, I have to admit, but Joe Burrow, I would go with Joe Burrow because I think that he's going to be throwing like crazy. We saw him last week where the mad, frustrated Joe Burrow just lit it up. So, I expect that to continue.
And Chase Brown had a big week too. You get that running game going, play action gets a lot more efficient. Burrow's clearly got the better receivers. We finally saw a down week by Jacoby.
You okay there?
But I got to say, I think I'd go with Burrow. Tough question. The TJ or DJ T Higgins or DJ Moore. I think I'm going with T Higgins here. DJ Moore is just not consistent enough for me. And again, I think San Francisco is going to spank the Bears. I really do.
Yeah. And I also like all of the, give me all the Bengal players. So I also,
and I'm not counting on 2 touchdowns from AJ Barner, so I'm going Loveland there.
And same with me. I think that Loveland's going to be much more involved in the offense this week.
Was there another question you just flashed up?
No, that was Derek's thanking us and apologizing for the technical difficulties. So we're ready to go into the actual mailbag.
Okay, well, we've got mailbag questions from Ricardo Contreras. I'm in the championship round, and I can't decide between Dak Prescott or Josh Allen. Who you got there, Rick?
Boy, and that was a tough one because I like both quarterbacks, and ordinarily I would say Josh Allen because, if you have Josh Allen, you start Josh Allen. But I happen to know that he's a little bit dinged up. He's going against an angry Philadelphia defense. Dak gets to go against a much friendlier pass defense than the Washington Commanders. And I think Vegas also seems to think Dak, since Dallas is favored by 7 and there's a 50.5 point over under, while Buffalo is favored by 1.5 points and only a 43.5 over and under. So I'm leaning Dak.
All right. Well, both players are great options, as Rick said. Okay. I also would say Dak. Prescott faces, like Rick said, the Washington Commanders, a defense that struggled against quarterbacks all year. They allow consistent production, making him a high floor fantasy player, while Allen's coming off a lower scoring game and faces a strong Eagles defense. So to me, it's the defenses that make the difference, not the quarterbacks. Now, I will say you're going to get more rushing yards from Josh.
Sure.
And if your scoring system highly favors that, it gives you pause. One other thing to consider is part of the reason that scoring over under is so low is they're expecting difficult weather conditions in that game with the potentiality of snow. So, again, Dak for both of us.
Yeah, the other thing that adds to the concern about Josh Allen and the running part of his game is the severity of the foot injury and if it's going to hamper him at all. So I would, again, keep an eye on the injury reports through the week.
All right. From Robert Royal, he goes back, Allen or Prescott, which we've already answered, so we don't need to do that again. But he also has one, Darren Waller or Harold Fannin Jr. Now, for me, Okay, like I said, we already answered the first part of the question, so I'm going to concentrate on the second. Fannon's clear choice. I don't even think it's close. Okay, although he was only targeted 6 times last week, over his past 3 starts, he's averaging over 10 targets per game, which is basically wide receiver usage for Harold Fannin. Waller has a rookie quarterback in his second start, and Ewers looked pretty inept last week. So for me, it's Fannin easily.
Yeah, and I agree. Again, I like Fannin. I think he's a top 5 tight end this week. I also like the fact that, well, of course, he's got a great connection, it seems, with Shadir Sanders. He had 24.5 fantasy points against Tennessee, only 8.5 against Chicago, but then again, over 18 points, fantasy points against Buffalo. So I think Fannin's a pretty clear choice here.
Okay. Well, for Mike Pruitt, didn't there used to be a running back named Mike Pruitt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, that name looked really familiar. He's got a quarterback question too. He wants, and I think this one's a tougher one. Jalen Hurts or Bo Nix? Who you got there, Rick?
I tell you, they're both going against good defenses. The Chiefs only give up 16.5 points against quarterbacks. The Eagles only 15.2 fantasy points. But there'll be more scoring in the Philadelphia-Buffalo game and a possible shootout between Hurts and Allen. So I would lean towards Hurts here. I could see wanting to go with Nix because he's heating up, but again, I'd still think I'd go with Hurts.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is generally ranked over Bo Nix this week. Okay, both face, as Rick said, relatively good defensive teams this week. But the Eagles are going to be playing their starters because they want to improve on their playoff seeding and maintain momentum. The Chiefs are out of the playoffs, so who knows if they play around with their lineup a little bit to see some of the younger kids. Broncos get a lead, and I do expect the Broncos to get a lead. They may get conservative in their game script as well. So I don't think the Eagles can get conservative against the Bills. Okay. So for me, it's Jalen Hurts because I think his game script is going to favor him more than anything else. From Connor Cody, another Bo Nix one. And it's a Thursday game too, by the way, or Burrow versus Arizona. Now, for me, okay, this our first 2 questions had Allen and Prescott. Now, this one is the second one with Bo Nix. I think that tells us who went to their championship games, if nothing else, who they had at quarterback. But I apply the same logic we applied to the last question where we suggested Hurts over Nix. Okay. In this one, I know Burrow is not playing for a playoff spot, but he's the better quarterback here, and his matchup is just pristine. You got to love that matchup. So I'm going Burrow over Nix.
Yeah, me too. I want as much of the Cincinnati offense this week as possible. I chose Mike Gesicki as my sleeper, so I'm all in on the Bengals.
Yeah, I got that from Joe Santaguida. PPR, start 1. I actually like this one. Diggs or Swift? And you know how I feel about Swift, so what are you going to – and last week I actually got in an argument with Scott Ingle that I'll cover a little bit later. Those that don't know, Scott Ingle's a fellow first ballot Hall of Famer. I really like his opinion on almost everything. So you first, Rick.
Okay, well, DeAndre Swift, he had 58 yards against Green Bay. He had 98 yards and a touchdown against Cleveland. He had 63 yards again against Green Bay. He had 125 and a touchdown against Philadelphia, and he only had 15 yards against Pittsburgh. So I'm seeing an alternating pattern. He must be due for another big game against the 49ers, right? No, patterns aside, San Francisco only gives up 88 yards per game to running backs and only a half of a touchdown per game. And I expect there to be more of a passing battle on Monday night. Diggs, on the other hand, goes against the Jets. Henderson's out. May, I think, should look to pass more, and Diggs is his favorite receiver. So while I usually try to go for running backs in my flex, I'd be starting Diggs here.
Okay, so this is tough for me because I have Swift as a bust this week, okay? But I do believe he has a relatively stable floor, about 10 points. You're going this back and forth on every other week. People laugh at me for curse of 370. And you're going every other week as reasoning. I'm sorry. Curse of 370, I can prove. The other week is that's wild. But I think that Swift's floor is 10, whereas Diggs' floor is 6. All right. I think that Swift's ceiling is higher. I think he's got a ceiling of 30 points, and Diggs' ceiling is only 24. So why am I leaning towards Diggs? It's purely matchup based, I got to say. I got to believe San Francisco keeps Swift near his floor. Well, I also think Diggs gets closer to his ceiling. I don't think he hits it, but I think he gets closer to it against the Jets. They're expected to be without several of their defensive starters, including 2 defensive linemen and some defensive people in the defensive backfield. So, and I mean, let's face it, I think New England still has to keep winning because they want to improve their playoff positioning as well. So I don't think they take it easy on the Jets.
Yeah.
Because if
also,
you
do you think that Mongai gets some of the usage that Swift would have been
every
getting?
week?
Yeah.
Every week he does, yeah. I think he's more used in the passing game than Swift is as well. Which surprises me because Swift can catch, and he is so explosive that I would think they would try to get him the ball in little out routes and things like that, and they don't seem to do it very much. Is there nothing in the chat? Because if there's not,
that was just the one question from Sniper Mel. So,
well, thank you, Mel, for supporting us, of course, and thank you everybody who tuned in on a special Tuesday edition of the Thursday Checkdown. We hope that you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will be back next week. I'm not sure what day or time. What is next Thursday? Is it a good day for us?
It's New Year's Day. So,
oh, that's a good day because everybody's already hung over from New Year's Eve. So if it was New Year's Eve, we'd have to move it. But New Year's Day, we should be able to do that. Anyway, we wish you the best. May all your Christmas wishes come true. And please spend time with your family and friends. It's that time of year, and they're more important than you ever know. Thanks, Rick.
Oh,